so easy to get disconnected, to blame each other, to not lean in, to not connect intimately. And so many couples are in this dynamic. And so the whole goal is like, let's get in that love seat together, which means we're united physically, emotionally, spiritually.
Well, Dave and Ashley, welcome back.
Thank
Hey
you.
guys, it's great to be back.
It's always good to have you here. It's
Love
just
it.
like we're talking as old friends, right?
Yes.
And that's so good. Man, let's start with your love story. It's always fun to do that. You guys are so vulnerable and so open with both the highlights of that and the low lights of that. How did you meet, and when did you know you were going to get married? Was it like love at first sight?
Well, it kind of was for me. I mean, I
Typical male.
You know, it took her, maybe took her longer, but
I don't know. It was pretty quick.
When she walked in, it was her very first day of college, and I was a junior. I was a couple years ahead, and she walked into class one day, and I don't even know if she saw me or knew I existed, but she was laughing and talking and just lit up the room, and I thought, I've got to get to know her.
You said you noticed me because I was wearing a hat. I'm a big time hat person.
I noticed a lot more than the hat, but yeah.
But I was wearing this
hat.
like fisherman's hat that's really popular in the late 90s, early 2000s. And we chatted it up that whole semester. We were just kind of acquaintances, kind of friends. And then you ended up asking me to your fraternity formal, and we went to each other's. Like we went to some dances together and really got to know each other. And very quickly, I mean, we really, I just felt like we started talking marriage pretty quickly, wouldn't you say,
Wow,
sweetie?
that's good, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Well, I knew I had to seal this deal before she realized how much better she could do.
Oh my goodness.
Like
That
she's
is
out
not
of my
true.
league. I've got to make sure that
You are a wise
land the
man.
plane here.
No, it's so true.
We just knew. I mean, we
did.
We knew like we wanted to be together, and of course we had a lot to learn, but
Yes.
we knew we wanted to figure it out together. We wanted to be husband and wife, and so we got engaged pretty quickly. And
It's always a little bit of an awkward moment when that, it can be. And, you don't want to make the assumption because that's not good. And then
Right.
you want to get the point across that, man, I'm really interested. So it's always that struggle of where's that line. Gina and I had that. I mean, we knew, both of us, I think, knew, but it took us, this is kind of funny, it took us like 6 months
Yeah.
to get to the point of going, do you think? Do you think?
Right.
no,
Right.
And you don't have to fill in the blank. She knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Me telling her I love her for the first
That
time
was
was
how
one
the
of
I love you
the
went.
most awkward moments of my life because I was so nervous, right? And so she was like, "What do you think?" And I wanted to say it, but I couldn't get it out. I'm like, I was just, I was thinking like, I was just thinking, and that I
He literally did this. It went on.
Sounds like a TV show.
it was,
I'm
and she was
serious.
just smiling, waiting for it. I was like, I love,
You didn't even say
I
it.
really, I think that I love, and before I could even get it out, she said, "I love you too."
I did.
Oh, that's
Because I saw it in his
rescued
eyes,
me.
and I said,
She rescued me.
I said, sweetie, I love you too.
Well, it's
And then you were
interesting.
like, oh, okay.
There's so much in that transaction because, guys, we do not like to fail. And we don't want to
Yeah.
go out on a limb unless we have an assurance that we're going
Yes.
to win.
Yes.
So that's why I think guys hesitate. Like, I'm not quite sure I'm getting the right vibe from you. So
Yes.
that's why you got to finish the sentence for us.
Thank you, my love. Thank you.
Do you think?
She's been rescuing me ever since.
Let me ask you about this. You have a quote that you like, and it says, "Love is not enough for a marriage to work." I mean, I understand it, but come on, isn't love enough?
Well, I mean, love in the world's definition, is the world's definition of love is really so superficial. It's kind of this something we derive from love songs and Hallmark movies, where it's this picture of love where it's always going to be easy. If you marry the right person, you're always going to have these feelings. You're never going to struggle. It's never going to take real work. But real marriage takes a lot more than that. I mean, it takes a commitment to each other, even on the days when maybe you struggle to like each other in that moment. Because you're so committed to each other, and it's rooted in action, and that's the way God loves us, with a committed love that's rooted in action, and we've got to love each other that way. So I think we've got to just break free from the world's very shallow definition of love to what God has in store and in mind for marriage, which is it's selfless, it's sacrificial at times, it's going to take work, but it's so worth it.
Right.
I was thinking about the transactional nature of that. You think of the world, and now, psychology has shown that basically love defined by the world is that infatuation.
Yes.
it lasts about 2 years. And it's kind of like God's sense of humor to say, okay, I'm going to give you a dose of dopamine in your brain. It's going to give you, you're going to have this infatuation because if you didn't, it probably we'd never have children. I mean, I'm thinking, okay, Lord, what are you thinking? And, but that's true. I mean, he does in the way he created us. He gives us this, like, you could do nothing wrong. And then that wears off.
Yeah.
And then the hard work of marriage starts.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
you're doing everything wrong. Well, I didn't think it was me. I thought it was you. And blah, 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 blah. You know, how that all goes. We mentioned your books, 7 Days to a Naked Marriage. And I guess the question is, A, how'd you come up with that title? Everybody's going, did I just hear that correctly? and then, you know, it's talking about a bouquet of intimacy, if I could say it that way.
Yes,
Emotional.
I love that.
That's going to be our
physical.
next book.
But first,
The Bouquet of Intimacy.
for some of those folks that are going, what? They use the word naked?
God
Yes.
uses the word naked.
Right?
What?
Yeah.
I know.
Where?
Hey,
Genesis.
Okay, give it to me.
Well, in Genesis 2, it talks about Adam and Eve, the very first married couple, being naked and unashamed. And that's really where having a naked marriage comes from. It's being naked, yes, physically, that's a part of it. That's an awesome part of it.
Oh,
but
yeah.
that's not the only part. We got to be naked physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And basically, it means being vulnerable. Being vulnerable, you know, showing everything, really being known and fully knowing your spouse. I mean, that's really the goal.
Yeah.
And that's when you get that grit that you're talking about that we don't tend to have, you know, in those first 2 years where we're going off the dopamine we had from the infatuation. But when, you know, everything really gets, you know, the reality hits that like, oh my gosh, we're imperfect people and we have to work things out. And I don't like every little thing you do. Like there's things that annoy me and I need to work through that. You know, that's where we have to get that grit to work through all those things. And we get that by being honest and by loving through those hard times.
Yeah.
And not letting it be this conditional kind of willy-nilly, if I'm not feeling it, I'm not going to be here for you kind of love.
Well, I think even, you know, we're kind of giggling and laughing about the title and all that, but there is a deep problem in the church. I mean, even some people listening, and I get it, everybody. There's a certain, I don't know if it's false prudishness about it, but that the Lord created us
Right. Yes.
naked and unashamed, like we were just there. We didn't know any better, right? Adam and Eve. This is who we are. You made us. Everything's good. And then sin enters into humanity, and all of a sudden we're covered and ashamed.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we still live that way. Even, if I can say it, even in the Christian community, marriages live in that place of cover up and shame.
Yeah.
Yes.
But they don't have to, is the good news.
Right.
Like we get back to God's original design and by his grace, and we can get back to that place of being naked and unashamed where, yeah, we still have flaws. Nakedness is that picture of vulnerability where whether it's physical or emotional, it says like, this is me, like kind of warts and all, scars and all. And I see you and your scars too, but I accept you just the way you are. You accept me just the way that I am. And there's such an intimate connection that happens when you can be fully known and fully loved by someone. And God fully knows us and fully loves us. So he went first. I mean, he went first with showing us what that looks like.
Yeah.
But in marriage, we can get back to that place. So it's heartbreaking for us when we see couples that are hiding from each other, hiding certain things, because they're robbing themselves of that deep, wonderful, intimate connection that God designed them to have.
Right.
You did premarital counseling. By the way, that is critically important. Again, we lean on a lot of research here at Focus. I think that's one reason. Hopefully you trust what we have to say, the resources that we produce, etc. But the minimum number of hours, if you can receive 10 hours of premarital counseling, your likelihood of staying together is quite high. It's in the, I think, the 90-something percentile range for 10 hours of counseling. Now, Gene and I, we saw that. We had probably 12 couples in our premarital counseling. I think 3 walked out saying, we're not ready for this.
Wow.
That's good.
But that's a good thing, right?
That's a good thing. I mean,
is.
that it caught their attention. We are not either meant for each other or, we need to do some work. So how was your premarital counseling? And did you guys go in going, we are so much alike?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
we
totally
got
did.
this. We'll go through the motions.
Gina and I too.
We get a discount on our wedding license if we check this off the box. But
Oh, my goodness.
no, but we learned a lot, and it challenged us, and it was a wake up call. It helped
It
us
was
to
a
see
wake-up
we're
call.
not nearly as as good as we think.
No, but we really did. We thought even with like relationships, like we were like, oh, even in marriage, like we got this. Like we majored in communication, like we got this. And they did this exercise with us where basically they had us each say something and the other could not talk when the other, like when the spouse to be was talking, telling a story. And it was like in a minute or something. And we're supposed to listen intently. And then when they're finished, we're supposed to say, what I'm hearing you say is, and then we would say what we thought we were hearing them say. And we both did this, and we both really got it wrong. Like, because I think what we were doing, instead of actually listening, we were thinking about how good we are at this and what we were going to say back, and we were assuming we knew what they were going to say, because that's what we tend to do. Like, well, I hear the beginning of this, and I'm just assuming I know the rest of the story. And right then and there, it was like, it was a wake-up call to us, like, man, we have a lot of work to do in this communication thing, and that it's not something that you just arrive at, like, in life. It's a journey. Like, you're always learning about each other. You always need to be a good listener and not just think about your response, like, really listen to your spouse. And so we've worked on that, for 22 years. We're
still learning.
Always,
and how's that going,
learning.
Dave?
Yeah.
It's
a lot better than it was.
Better than it was.
Okay.
I'm a work in progress.
Let her answer that question.
Yes,
that
my
was
love. How do you
excellent.
feel like it's going? I concur. No,
I have that problem where I finish. People are going to go, "You are kidding me," but I'll tend to, if Jean's kind of taking a little while to put the noun at the end of the sentence, I'll offer 3 or 4.
You're like the Google auto. You start typing it in.
She's so good. She'll look at me and say, "Can I finish my sentence?"
Yes.
I'm still doing it. We've been married 37 years.
Yes.
I think it's a little lower volume, but it's like this thing I can't get rid of. And that's what you're talking about. That's
Yes.
not. See, I interpret good listening skills as finishing someone's sentence.
Right.
I'm really listening to you. In fact, so intently, I can finish what you're going to say.
Right.
They don't think so.
Exactly.
She doesn't think so.
Exactly. No, and I've done that for Dave. Like, there's been several times where I'm like, I'll insert something, and he's like, no, that is not.
Yeah. Like, I'm going to go get a sandwich. Go for a run. Go to Lowe's. Like, no. I'm going to go to take a
It's like
shower.
this
Just
multiple
let me
choice
finish.
thing.
Right, yeah.
Yes.
Just let me say it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Dave, one obstacle to the vulnerability of marriage is something you call emotional sunburn. Now, being a fair-skinned Irish guy, I'm connecting with you.
Yes.
I have had plenty of sunburns in my life, and now I go to the dermatologist quite regularly. But what does that mean, emotional sunburn?
Yeah, so like when our family would go to the beach, we noticed that none of us were applying sunscreen effectively, and we were all pretty fair-skinned. And so by the time we get back home at the end of the night, everybody was sore, needing aloe, and just in a bad mood.
Why did we go there?
Why did we do that?
That was horrible.
And I would notice that if someone would come and just tap my back, like, "Hey, Dave, how was your day?" and they'd pat me on the back, I'd want to punch them in the face, right? Because they touched a place where I was wounded. It had nothing to do with anything they did wrong. There was just, under my shirt, there was this wound that they could not see. And in marriage, I think we all kind of carry, to some level, these invisible emotional sunburns that over time, our hearts have been wounded by different things. Maybe we've even wounded one another. These wounds can be invisible, and yet when our spouse in close proximity to us just says something or just kind of touches us a certain way, it might evoke this irrational emotional response that surprises them and makes them think that they've done something terribly wrong, when really it's just a defense mechanism that we build up to protect our own wound. And so in marriage, you've got to become experts in navigating each other's woundedness and not lashing out in your own woundedness, because it's something that all of us are prone to do. When we're hurt, we tend to lash out and cause further damage. But in marriage, we have to take a step back, even in our pain sometimes, and lean in and really work through the process together.
Okay, I'll stick with the analogy of the sunburn. So what's the aloe? What do you put on that soothes that pain?
That's a great question.
It is.
I think that the aloe is a combination of listening, of tenderness, of compassion, of encouraging words, of just serving one another. And depending on your spouse's temperament, their personality, the level of the woundedness, their own individual kind of love language, all those things, that aloe might look a little bit different. But for all of us, it's going to require a lot of tenderness and time.
Well, and I think one of the challenges you have there is that it's typically an external treatment, meaning your spouse provides it. If you have those wounds, it's hard for you to provide it for yourself.
Right.
But when your spouse is able to soothe you, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And really, we also have to lean into the Lord on our own.
Of course.
So like our spouse has to be part of that process, but your woundedness is something you need to take first to Jesus and find that healing in him, and then let your spouse be part of that process. Don't shut them out from it. Don't push them away.
Another aspect of the book, and again, these are companion books, you use actually the marital vows. We haven't really said that. One is to love and cherish. Dave, I understand you like to illustrate this vow with living room furniture. I'm not sure. That sounds really romantic, by the way.
It is, yeah. It is. Well,
connect the dots for me.
Yes.
yeah, well, I'm a visual learner, right? So if I can like see something, I just kind of understand the concept more. And so in one of a talk we did at a marriage conference, we had some furniture on stage. There was a love seat in the middle and 2 individual chairs next to the love seat.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, yeah. So
I know where this is
off to a
going.
good start,
Yes.
right? Yeah. So the love seat we would sit in and we'd say, okay, now this represents, it's an actual love seat, but it represents, a love where love should live in your marriage, where you're united, you're here together. But another posture marriage can have is when you're in these 2 individual seats. You're not the same place. It's his and hers, and from this distance, it's so easy to get disconnected, to blame each other, to not lean in, to not connect intimately. And so many couples are in this dynamic. And so the whole goal is like, let's get in that love seat together, which means we're united physically, emotionally, spiritually, and we're together. Our proximity is near one another, both physically and emotionally. And if you're not there, if you feel that distance, then work actively to figure out where the distance started, and then how do we get back together? How do we right this course and get back in the same place again?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Ashley, you've been really vulnerable in the writing of these. And even when we've been here at the studio talking, you guys are refreshingly open about your shortcomings, which is great. That's what we attach to, because when we're honest, we got similar ones, if not the exact same ones.
Right.
You don't always feel lovingly or inviting toward Dave, especially when you've been dealing with children all day long. That's completely understandable. What advice do you have for wives, mothers, who struggle to cherish their husbands because they're not that cherishable? So I guess the quid pro quo there is, A, do we have to earn that cherished spot? And if so, how do we do that? And then B, how does a woman show that kind of cherishedness toward her husband, if that's a word?
Yes, no, I love that question, because I do, especially when we are in the thick of raising children, we can get so kind of focused on the kids that we get frustrated when our husband actually needs something. Like when our husband comes to us and is like, hey, you want to have some intimate time together? Or, hey, do you want to go on a date? It feels like another thing on the list. And so what I would say...
So when you say, are you serious? That's really not a good response?
Right. Probably not. But I mean, I totally get the sentiment of it.
Yes.
And I've probably said it before myself.
Yeah.
Because I think we feel like there's all these plates we're keeping spinning, all these things we're trying to, take off the list or whatever. But I think that we can't see our husband in our relationship with our husband that way. I mean, this is the one that we have pledged to live our whole life with.
Yeah.
It's our best friend. And so we have to not see him as another thing on our list, and really make intentional time for him to really spend that time and talk to him. And I mean, that may look like putting the kids to bed earlier than you normally would, so that you can have an actual conversation
4
with your
o'clock
husband.
bedtime.
Yeah,
Kids, let's go.
I know. And the kids, I would just say the kids aren't going to like it. The kids aren't going to like an hour earlier bedtime, but that's okay. I mean, you're the parents, you got to set those rules and just have that time. And even just, making sure that there's room in your day for your spouse. And I would encourage husbands too, especially in the thick of raising kids, like, don't let everything fall on your wife. You guys are partners, you're in this together. Make sure that you're communicating well and assume the best of each other. Assume the best, that he didn't know that you expected him to do that, or she did not know that you had put that on the calendar. Like, just go and communicate and say, listen, I would like more time with you. And if you go from the heart, I mean, that's how you cherish each other, is really getting to the heart of things, and that you want to have that time together.
Ashley, one thing I want to recognize for wives and mothers right now is that, as you were talking, it hit me. Everybody's pulling on you.
Yes.
And I can get that, because typically in that busy season, you're not, as the wife, initiating intimacy.
Right.
And you feel like, I've got the kids pulling on me. Now I got my husband pulling on me. It's pour out, give. Who's filling my tank?
Right.
Just describe that, and then what can we do as husbands to help fill that tank up in a way that feels true,
Right.
and not motivationally feels
Exactly.
true, and not motivated by some other underlying desire.
Exactly. No, and that you just hit the nail on the head. I think that is when wives feel like, oh, he's only doing this because he knows we're going to have special time together later, it can feel inauthentic. And so I would say, yes, I agree with you. I mean, I remember those times. My kids are a little older now, but I remember feeling like, man, literally and figuratively, everything and everyone pulling at me. And it just felt like, gosh, can I just have a moment to myself, you know? And I would say as a husband, what you can do is help give your wife that moment to herself. Like I remember just a little example. When we had several small children in our house, and we were at a new place, and I was trying to get kind of, into the community. And I had this girl come up to me at church and said, "Hey, Ashley, I heard you used to be a dancer. Well, we have a dance team at our church, and it's kind of a small group too. We pray together, we do life together. Would you like to come?" And I'm like, "Well, yes, I would love to come. When do you meet?" And she was like, "Tuesdays at 7 or whatever." And immediately I thought, I have too much on me. I can't do that. And I later on in the day was talking to Dave about it and he was like, "How was your day?" And I was like, "Oh, well, Sarah came up to me and told me that the church has a dance team. Isn't that just so cool? They celebrate the arts. Man, I would just love to be part of that. It's just too bad I can't." And he stopped me right there and said, No, when is it?" And I was like, "Tuesdays at 7. And he goes, "I will rearrange my schedule. We're giving you Tuesdays at 7. And it was like every week, having small children, and at the time I was staying at home. So it was like I was at home all day with kids, which is awesome, and I loved it. But to be able to go and be with people who love the Lord, who love to dance, who want to pray with me and do life with me, it literally it was like fresh wind to me.
Yeah.
And so I would just encourage husbands, it may not be a dance team for your wife, but like find a way to give her that time. And then I'm telling you, when she sees you being intentional about giving her that time, it naturally, she feels cherished, and she's going to lean in more to you because she knows you're trying to be a true partner.
You're watching Focus on the Family with Jim Daly, and thanks for joining us today. If you're enjoying this Best of 2024 conversation with Dave and Ashley Willis, please share it with other married couples who need this kind of encouragement.
That's right, John. Dave and Ashley have so many good things to say to husbands and wives about intimacy and how to grow closer to the Lord. And we'll return to their great content in just a moment. But first, let me encourage you to become a subscriber to our Focus on the Family YouTube channel. It's a great way to stay in touch with us. And when you subscribe, you're letting YouTube know that you'd like more practical encouragement and faith-building programs like this one. You can subscribe by clicking on the button below. And thank you for helping us share this family-friendly, God-honoring content.
And with that, let's go back to the show.
The next wedding vow on your list deals with finances for richer or for poorer. We tend not to talk about that much. Mm-hmm. It does create a lot of pain. It usually, in the folks that are responding to us with marital difficulty, it's up there number 1 or 2.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
It's usually physical intimacy or financial struggles are causing fractures in the marriage.
Right.
Speak to the vow for richer or for poorer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a big one. And it's one that Dave and I, going into marriage, we talked about premarital counseling. We did talk through this. And honestly, we got married so young that we weren't managing a lot of money or anything at the time. Yeah. We were really just trying to make
broke.
Ends meet. So broke.
There was not money to really talk about. It was just
that
like,
sounded like a joke setting up. We were so broke.
We were.
Yes. I mean, seriously. I was still in college. Like, I had another semester and a half, or I guess a year and a half to finish of college. And Dave, he graduated college one weekend. We got married the next weekend, and then he started working for our college. Like, that was his first job. And so we weren't, we didn't really have a lot of money to manage, but we really got into the trap of credit card debt.
Because it's easy.
Oh my gosh, it's so easy.
Makes up the gap.
It does. It does. And we just didn't really at the beginning know how to communicate about that, but it kind of, real fast, we were like, we got to get a hold of this.
Yeah.
And really not see each other as the enemy. Like, we have to see that we're on the same team.
Well,
we're
this
going to
is
work
year
through
1
this
of your
together.
marriage. That's pretty mature. Some people in year 10, 20 don't even have we got to get a hold of this. And we're together. We're on one team.
We tried. I mean, I'm saying we knew we had to get a hold of it. Getting there was a whole other thing.
Okay, it was a process.
It was a long process.
Yeah, Dave Ramsey has not used us as a case study in what to do right.
This is true.
Because we did a lot wrong. But we just didn't have much money, and we were spending on credit cards and then rolling over balances and trying to manage all of that. And we realized quickly, like, all right, we've got to have a plan. We had not ever budgeted. We had not ever really talked about money. We were just like, well, if we need something, we'll buy it and we'll figure it out. And that wasn't working. We were digging ourselves into a hole, and it was creating so much stress, so much unnecessary just stress on our lives. And so we started a process of getting out. And really it comes down to communication, really. We're going to talk about purchases. If anything, if we're going to make any purchase that's outside of kind of the regular bills and groceries, we're going to call each other and just say like, hey, is there money in the bank for this? Is now a good time to get this thing? And just keep each other in the loop.
Right.
When couples start hiding purchases from each other or, hiding money at all, I think that's such a toxic thing that will create a wedge in your marriage. But we just decided, listen, it's all God's anyway. Like he owns everything. We're temporary stewards of it, whether it's a little or a lot. At that time, it was very little. And so let's manage this well, and let's figure out how to make this work with what we have.
It's really good that you're saying it in that context, because I'm sitting here thinking of Naked and Unashamed, kind of the theme of the books. And that's an area where people hide.
Oh, sure.
Oh,
yeah.
Because there's issues there. There's insecurities, binge buying. There is a medicating effect too for a lot of, not just women, but men too, where, you soothe some of those aches by overspending. And, you just got to get control of that.
Right.
And I guess one of the key questions there is having little. I mean, I'm sure the school is paying you $3.16 an hour. That's a windfall,
Lucrative.
man.
Yeah,
But at what point can you discern between if we spend wiser, we have enough?
Yes.
It may be just enough, but there is enough if we're wise about what we have.
Right.
That's the problem. How do you discipline yourself to do it? What did you guys do practically to say, okay, here's what you get. You don't get to go out for a coffee for $5.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, we really just dialed in our spending because we had to, because we knew that just being disciplined in our spending is the path to freedom. And I think that that's what we don't understand so many times is we feel like it's this straitjacket on us when we can't spend whatever we want and we can't just, load up on the credit cards. But when we realize like we're going to be a slave to the credit card, a slave to having all this debt, if we don't get a grip on this and pay off this debt as fast as we can and also really get our spending, just dialed in. And I think the more we saw that balance come down on our credit card, that felt good. I mean, that felt like a path to freedom.
You were making it.
Yes, we were making it. We
Yeah.
were, and we were paying more than the minimum payment because we were really drastically seeing it come down. And then really seeing, like you said, we really had more than we really needed. Like we had a hot meal, we had a roof over our head, and it was like the joy that we found in not fighting over money, feeling like, a lot of times we'd feel like failures. You'd feel like a failure when you get that bill.
Especially, it's like, I'm the man, I'm supposed to be a provider, and I
Mm-hmm.
can't provide. And she was so tender and compassionate and caring, with me to affirm me during those very, very lean years. But what we both realized is like the freedom and peace that comes with not being in this crippling debt is so much better than anything we could buy to put us into debt.
Yeah.
Yes,
And-
like a paid off car is the best kind of car.
I still drive an
saying?
old beat up car, and I love it
Yes,
because
it's
a
paid
paid
off.
off car smells better than
It
the new
smells
car smell
great.
if you got a car payment. So
Yeah.
we've still tried to live lean.
Let's move on to the next one in terms of the vows, in sickness or in health. How's the application work there? I mean, obviously, people go through difficulties, sometimes early in their marriage, but more typically it's later.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there are tragic stories, and people call us where their spouse has left them because they hit a health wall. And man, that's so discouraging.
It
Right.
is.
I mean, that's the most extreme where a couple can't hold together through that. But describe what you're getting at with in sickness or in health.
Well, I mean, it's a privilege. You have to see it as a privilege to serve your spouse in those times when they need you. Not a burden, but a privilege. And Ashley and I, even though we've not experienced some of the extreme situations of sickness that many have, and for those who have, our hearts go out to you in those situations, we've experienced what for us has felt extreme at times. And I know that I'm sure over the years we'll experience more. I know Ashley's, she went through a long mental health battle fairly early in our marriage we walked through. In more recent years, I got diagnosed with a thyroid disorder, an autoimmune disease that was just bringing my energy down. My hormones were off. My mental clarity was off. Like everything was off.
A lot of mood.
Yeah, I was moody. Like I was just off, and I hate going to the doctor. So for years, I just didn't go to the doctor. I'm like, I'm fine. I don't need a doctor. I'm not going to go sit in that waiting room and, But Ashley finally encouraged me to go, and I went, got blood tests, and realized that I had a lot that was off, and it put us on a journey of like getting the medications right, getting everything that needed to happen to get back to just being normal. But it was a process, and through that process, I wasn't at my best. I was grumpy. I was moody. I was just the worst version of myself. And Ashley, instead of responding to me being grumpy and not myself with her grumpiness, she showed extra grace and extra kindness. And I'm just so thankful for that. The tenderness she showed through that whole season. And I'm just publicly want to say thank you, my love. Like it was so amazing how you kind of walked with me through that to kind of get to a place now where I'm back myself and feeling great again. And
let me ask you, Ashley, because again, these are forks in the road, I guess you could say, as a married couple. And again, it doesn't have to be the D word, but there's a fork in the road. One fork will say, come on, Dave.
Snap out of it.
Let's go.
Right.
Get to the doctor. I've told you 14 times to go to the doctor. What's your problem?
Right.
And the other fork is to do what you did.
Right.
But unfortunately, as human beings, that's the more... It's like the forks, one's downhill, our flesh, and the other one's uphill, our spirit, to respond with that. Right. So how do you do that? How does a spouse say, okay, I get it, quietly in their own heart, and then say, this is what he needs, this is what she needs, and then you put it in that gear and you go?
I know for me, and I didn't always do this perfectly. I mean, Dave's been so sweet to sing my praises over here. I mean, I've had frustrating moments with Dave in this journey.
And we'll get to those in a minute.
Oh, of course. I mean, but I would say to be very honest, and this may sound like such an obvious answer, but I mean, truly, prayer is what paves the way. Like prayer is what makes that path clear. But keeping a tender heart is huge. And I know there were times where Dave would he would just be in a mood. And Dave is generally, you guys know Dave, he's generally a happy guy.
Yeah.
But when his family, his brothers, brothers love to call it like it is, they call him BMD, Bad Mood Dave, because they're like, Bad Mood Dave is like really Bad Mood Dave, okay? He's just like everything rubs him the wrong way, And it's not that he's yelling at anybody, he's just, his whole being, you can just sense like he's just not in a good way.
I just get in a negative spiral that I couldn't pull out of. And again, like my serotonin was off, my hormones were off, and I would recognize like I don't want to feel this way, I don't want to act this way, but I didn't know how to pull out of it.
Yeah.
And your tenderness really helps through that season.
Well, and what I would say is, sweetie, because sometimes I don't think he even realized how negative
how bad it was.
And even towards the kids. And I would go up to him and I would say, Dave, you probably don't realize what's coming off here, but I know that if you would not want to be the way that you are right now, like you would have regrets. So, just be aware. And he'd be like, oh, I kind of feel it, I'm going to go take a moment over here. And like for Dave, sometimes going on a run would help, or, maybe we need to go just different things that I know would help him.
Yeah.
We would try to make sure we bring out the best in each other in those hard moments.
Yeah.
And as we've worked through the wedding vows, we're going to turn now to a problem that often ruins marriages. And parents, we're going to recommend that you direct little ones elsewhere or pop your earbuds in as we're going to talk about some mature content now.
And I appreciate that, John. Thanks for the warning. But it's part of your story.
Yeah.
And, again, I appreciate the vulnerability. It takes a lot of courage to do this. But Dave, you struggled in that area of pornography. Some of the, the recent data, as many as 50, I've seen 60%. But 55% seems to be a pretty solid number of men in the church.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, everybody catching this?
Yeah.
Men in the
we've seen
church,
it
not the world,
It's terrifying.
are hooked to some degree, looking at pornography at least once a month.
Right.
I mean, think about that, 55%. Talk about zapping the spiritual intimacy.
Oh, yeah.
And,
it's toxic.
And the blessing that God gives. I mean, you're living in this two worlds. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing, everybody. God sees you. You're not hiding. He understands it. He wants to heal your heart. But how did this hit you, Dave?
Yeah, so I got wrapped up in porn as a teenager, and I hated myself for it. And this was long before there were smartphones and all the access that people have today. I mean, you had to go looking for it more back then, but I got exposed, and then it planted those toxic images in my mind. And I didn't take the biblical path of breaking free or getting accountability or confessing or any of the things that you're supposed to do. I did what pride tells you to do and deal with it on your own. And then that secret struggle bled into the early years of our marriage. And then Ashley saw where I'd been looking on the computer, and I didn't even have the courage to confess. She had to find it, which wounded her in so many ways, and that brought it all out into the open. And I'm so thankful it did come out, because that's the only way healing can ever happen. And it was a long journey of working through that. And now in the work we're doing now, we spend a lot of time talking specifically about porn, not because it's a comfortable topic. It's
But
you know,
it's
but
a big one.
It's where
It's a
people
big one.
are.
Yeah.
I mean, so many, like you said, Jim. So many people are struggling with this, and so we just try to shed light on it. Like on our Naked Marriage podcast, we just interviewed a former adult film actor who then got saved and became a pastor named Joshua Broom. Amazing man, and he talked about just the darkness of that industry, how it dehumanizes both the consumer, but also the people involved in it, and behind that shiny veneer, how toxic it is. And he said in the 10 years since he left the industry, he's had 30 friends in the industry die by either suicide or overdose. 30 friends.
Yeah, you don't
It's
hear about
heartbreaking.
that.
You don't hear about that,
No.
no. And him sharing about just the exploitive nature of all of it, and the people that are trapped kind of in that cycle, even though they're given a certain level of celebrity and money, how they're really such broken folks, and how he was there.
It's true. And then you look at, man, again, as the metaphor, this whole life is a metaphor to God,
Right.
right? Trying to point us there. Even the habits that we have, the addictions that we have, the Lord is wooing us out of sin.
Yes,
Right.
Trying to say, come to me. And this is probably one of the most powerful ones. We can debate theologically why it is, but you go back to the garden and the whole concept of naked and unashamed.
Right.
I mean, this is attacking the very creation of God in us.
It is.
Because it's so core to how he created us. Ashley, let me ask you this, because obviously you're here. And I don't mean to denigrate any woman's response. There is so much pain in this
Yes.
because you can roll through it. I'm not enough. The shame that they feel that my husband had to go use porn, that is ill-placed, obviously.
Right.
But it's what they feel.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you felt it. Speak through that whole collage of things that a woman goes through, and that, that anger that can come in there, the sense of betrayal. I mean, all the adjectives that come with this are dark.
Yes, they are. They're very dark. And when I found that, at first I couldn't believe it. I think your first inclination is like, this couldn't be my husband, I mean, not Dave, not my Dave, because we tend to hold each other on a pedestal. And it was like in that moment, I had known, it's like the Holy Spirit reminded me, I had felt like there was a wall between us. Because, as spouses, we know when something's off, but we don't always know what the thing is, And I mean, I had been kind of, thinking over and over again, like, what is it? What could it be? Is he just stressed at work? Like, what is it? And it was like in that moment, God revealed it. And it was, Dave always says it was like the best day and the worst day all at once.
Yeah.
And it was terrible. He hated to see, like when I called him to confirm it, because that was the first, like after I was angry, I was sad, I was disgusted, I was mad, I was in disbelief. I mean, I had all these feelings. And yes, I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm not enough. Like, he's not attracted to me. I'm not satisfying to my husband. Like, I'm a disappointment. Like, I had all those feelings.
Yeah.
And, but I cried, and I cried out to God, like, what in the world? Like, how could this happen to us, not my Dave? And it was like, once I was able to gather myself, I was like, I need to hear it from him. I need to hear it out of Dave's mouth to admitting to this. Right. And so I called him at work, and he answered the phone and literally said hello. And all I said was, do you have something you need to tell me? And he knew immediately what I was talking about.
Well, it was probably the one secret.
It was the one secret. And he said he knew that it was going to hurt me, and he hated that. He hated himself for that. And he immediately said, I'm so sorry. I hate that you had to find it. I wished I had the courage to just confess it without you having to see those images. Yeah. And he just, was groveling, I mean, for lack of a better word. And I think we talked a little bit and was like, well, we'll talk more when we get home. And in those days and months, I mean, the first thing we did was get a lot of boundaries. We put some filtering software on every kind of device we had. And this was a long time ago, so those have come a long way. There's a lot. We still have those till this day. And then we knew that there had to be, he needed some counseling. There was a ministry back then that really helped him through that. And there were several relapses that happened in those months, which really take you back. Just like with any addiction. I mean, it just felt like, oh my gosh, I thought he was over this. He's still not satisfied with me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. Let me ask you this on behalf of women listening. Mm-hmm. Some that have encountered this with their spouse, others that may yet to have encountered it. Mm-hmm. Again, that stat, 55%, it's almost like, it's over 50-50 chance you're going to encounter this
Yes.
as a spouse. Those feelings, though, Ashley, that's what I'm really interested in, because I'm sure you're a wonderful person and you have a deeply rooted faith in Christ. That's obvious because of how you responded. But as we talked a moment ago about that Y in the road, that fork in the road, and the degree of descent and ascent required, this one is big.
Oh, it's big.
Because it's betrayal. And for you to respond with almost like a therapeutic spiritual approach. Okay, Dave, I know, let's work on this. A lot of women are going, how did you do that? I'd be slapping him. I'd be doing more, just lashing out at him. And maybe some of that happened.
Yeah.
But how do you get that righted in the right context and express unconditional love to him and a hope for the future?
Right. I mean, it was a process, and I definitely had better days than some of those days
That's
where I
good to
would
know,
lash
too,
out.
that
Oh,
up and down.
absolutely. I mean, definitely up and down. It was a messy road, right, sweetie? I mean, it was very messy.
It was.
But you were committed.
So committed. And I think what I kept coming back to on the days when I would have a pity party, which is fine. I mean, he broke my trust. Like, it's okay to be in those feelings and work through those feelings. But when I would start propping myself up, because that's what pride does, is you would have never done this today. You've not done this today. How dare he? I feel like the enemy loves to get a foothold that way. You've been a perfect spouse, which is just far from the truth. When I would even have that thought, it was like the Holy Spirit would reckon with me and be like, how many times did you need Jesus today? Which is all the time, every day, And I think too, another thing I was reminded of is that, this sin that Dave had been involved in with pornography is something. It was a sin that he was involved in, but it doesn't define him as a person. You know what I'm saying? That we are all people who need Jesus every day. And though pornography hasn't been my sin, I have plenty of other things that God is working on in me. And so I had to remember that and even call it out to him, because there were a lot of days where he would be like, I'm a failure. I don't know if I'll ever get through this. I've been involved with this since a teenager. Will I ever be free from this? Especially in relapses. And in those moments, as disappointed and frustrated as I was, I knew that, we talk about the power of our words. I knew that I needed to remind him, yes, I am disappointed. Yes, you hurt me, but this isn't who you are. This is not who you are. God has better for you, and there is freedom for you from this. It's going to take everything that we have.
Dave, let me ask you, I get it was hard, but hearing that from Ashley as your spouse, it had to be wow, naked and unashamed. She knows me. And you may still be ashamed, but you work toward that. There's no greater vulnerability than your spouse knowing all of these secret closets.
It's what the whole naked marriage is about. God wants us to get to that place where our spouse can see us, warts and all, and she saw all the ugliness in me.
Yeah, it doesn't get much uglier.
It was ugly, and I felt ugly. I felt broken, and she helped me to see myself again through God's eyes, and that she was so affirming that through her eyes that she still loved me and affirmed me and respected me even when I had done something so disrespectful. And her helping me through that in that tender, loving way, it really was, her and Jesus are the heroes of that story. Mm-hmm. And I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful to have come through that. And I'm so thankful that God's used that part of our testimony to hopefully bring help to other people. But I can just tell you on the other side, for anybody out there listening that is maybe caught up in porn and has believed the culture's lie, that it's not harmful, it's just entertainment, or it spices things up, whatever lie you've believed, let me just tell you, and instead of quoting countless Bible verses and showing you a bunch of stats and all these things that we've done other places to show you how toxic it is, let me just tell you, as someone who's been in it and been out of it, that the freedom that comes, the connection and intimacy that comes when you're not being governed by porn in any way is something that is so amazing in our marriage. And our marriage is so much better now. Every aspect of our marriage is so much better now than it was when I was caught up in that sin. And so if you're caught up in it now, you're robbing yourself and your spouse of what God wants for you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and this is under that banner of the vows, forsaking all others.
Yes.
And
Absolutely,
I didn't say that at the beginning, but we're not going to have time to get to until death do us part. But that's why you need the resource. Buy the book and get far more information. I think you can see it's really helpful. And Dave and Ashley, this has been so good. I just love you guys. I love the way you approach life. And obviously, even in your examples, the tenderness for each other, even in some really difficult moments. And it's such a testimony now to point the way for others. That's how we live and learn in this life. We can look at others that have done it well, coming from a pit of despair, and say, okay, it is possible. They did it. We can do it too. And I hope you feel that. Thanks for being with us.
Oh, thanks for having
Thank
us.
you.
We love you guys.
We do. We love you guys.
And that's such a powerful statement from Dave and Ashley about the toxic impact pornography can have on your marriage. And if you or someone you know is struggling with porn or some other kind of addiction that's putting your marriage at risk, I want to urge you to contact us today. This is why Focus on the Family is here. We have caring Christian counselors who understand the trauma you're going through. It won't be new to them, and they can help you get on a better path, a healthier and more godly path. We also have Hope Restored for couples who have reached the breaking point in their marriage and you're ready to give up. But before you do that, give God the opportunity to help heal your marriage.
Yeah, contact us today to set up an appointment with one of our caring counselors and to learn more about Hope Restored. You can click on your screen or call 1-800, the letter A in the word family. And we'd also recommend you get Dave and Ashley's book, 7 Days to a Naked Marriage. Now, there's a husband's edition and a wife's edition, and we're bundling those together. We'll send them out to you when you make a generous donation of any amount to Focus on the Family today. It's our way of saying thank you for helping us strengthen marriages and rescue hurting couples.
And here at the end of the year, please remember to support the ministry if you're in a position to do so. A year-end gift is so important to us because it sets up the budget for the coming year. And your ongoing support provides that fuel that we need to produce programs like this one, provide our website, our counseling, all the resources that we have. It's the work we do together to help bring the kingdom of God closer to people, especially in the area of marriage and parenting and helping a mom make a decision for life when she's contemplating abortion. But let's together minister to more people in 2025.
Yeah, help us give families hope this season when you donate generously. Call 1-800, the letter A in the word family, or just click on your screen. Thanks for watching Focus on the Family with Jim Daly. I'm John Fuller, inviting you back as we once again help you and your family thrive in Christ.